This meeting's being recorded, but you know that now. My name is Courtney. I work with the Network's Education Action Team. And in addition to this session being recorded, there are closed captions available. And I think if you go down to the bottom bar, you can figure that out. I hope. So I'm just going to get us dive right in. In June of 2021, the Lake Oswego School District adopted as one of its strategic priorities, teach and practice sustainability. Sustainable building practices were prioritized for the projects funded by the 2017 school bond, like Lakeridge Middle School, which we'll discuss in a moment, and will be again for the next bond, specifically for River Grove and Lake Oswego Junior High. And the next bond is on the ballot, which you should be receiving any minute now. And these efforts to teach and practice sustainability are overseen in the district by Tony Vandenberg, who's joining us. He's our Executive Director of Facilities. And to enhance the curriculum, the district created the position of teacher on special assignment for sustainability. And Larry Zurcher assumed that role in September. So Tony and Larry are the two district staff members charged with implementing the strategic priority of teaching and practicing sustainability. So tonight they'll join me to discuss how sustainability is integrated into our curriculum and the critical role that our school buildings and grounds will play in supporting this curriculum. Now, I know Tony does have to leave in about 7. Is that correct? Tony, still that correct? Okay, so we're going to dive right in. And normally on these forums, announcements and news for the network are announced first, but we're going to push that to the end so we can dive right into our discussion. So I'm going to kick it off with a question. Please feel free to throw a question into the chat if you have one, and we'll address it as we go. So I'm going to start with you, Tony. Lakeridge Middle School is the model sustainable building in our district right now. And now that it's finished and being used, can you just let us know what's working well? What will you replicate in the new buildings when the 2021 bond is passed? And what would you change when you start thinking about design and building River Grove and LOJ?
Sure. Thank you, Courtney. And hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So we've been in the middle school now for a while and fully loaded at this point with all of our students in. And we've been hearing a great buzz of excitement with all of our kids. Generally, I've only heard really, really good things about the building. We've been fortunate enough to have some classes in session over the summertime. So we were able to test the building during hot weather, and our building, which is a hybrid passive cooling building, we have systems in the building that rely on the building's thermal mass to maintain a constant temperature. And I just happen to have, I noticed one of our project architects, Stephen Endy, is on the phone too, or on the call. So he can chime in about all this stuff if he'd like. But this is an incredibly efficient building. And one of the things that Larry and I have been working on is trying to establish, where were we before the rebuild of Lakeridge Middle School, and kind of what are we realizing as far as savings goes. And this building was designed to meet what is considered path to net zero. So our reduction of energy usage is basically representative of over 70% reduction from a baseline design as far as energy savings goes. So we are an incredibly efficient building, all electric, and the building is performing quite well. I've pulled most of our staff, students, our principal and admin area that's been here throughout the summer and in and out, have all reported that the building is just very comfortable. We're really excited on how it turned out. Of course, this is a middle school, so we're taking a slightly different approach with River Grove. At the elementary school level, we'll still be designing an incredibly efficient building. We're looking at different types of systems now of what could be placed in a new River Grove, but it will have a very, very similar result as far as its efficiency goes and its sustainability components that are involved. I can't really think of anything that I would change at this point. It would have been nice to get all the solar panels on the roof, but just be aware, we are working on that now. Some of the remaining funds from the project will fund our first phase of solar panels on the roof, and we're designing those right now. So we'll see those on the roof of the gym, part of the commons area. In the coming summer, we'll have them completed. So as we continue, we'll continue to work with staff. We like to get them into the spaces and see how the spaces are functioning. From a usability standpoint, we get that feedback, we share with our design team, and we use it carrying forward for our other designs. But really, I'm really excited at how the building turned out from a functionality standpoint, operationally, talking with our custodians, the ease of cleaning the spaces. We don't have a lot of chopped up areas, so they can clean quickly, efficiently, even down to things like the furniture that stacks easy or nests or is on casters can move out of the way, and they can go through their spaces really quickly. All of that translates into not only kind of a sustainability component, but efficiency for our operations. This building is seismic level 4. So following a major seismic event, the building will remain. It can be used as an emergency shelter, and there's all sorts of opportunities for that. I guess one of the things that I wish I could change is when we had our big ice storm here and we had power out for so long, I wish I could have opened all the doors and had people come in. I had some staff members come in, and I was working out of this building because we have a generator. Another component of kind of resiliency and redundancy of system is the only thing that burns fuel on our site, but it does provide a 3-day runtime for all of our major systems and components of the kitchen commons areas, that in an event where we're out of power for an extended period of time, this building will still have power. Hopefully we can get a truck here to top it off after the 3-day mark, but it will continue to go. And even without power and heating, with the super insulation we have in the walls and the ceilings and throughout, the building will still remain fairly comfortable even when it's very, very cold without systems operating at all.
Tony, can you talk about, because I have toured Lakeridge Middle, the light that comes on so the kids know to open the windows? That is just
Sure.
so cool. Can you talk about
Yeah,
that?
this is part of our passive cooling approach. So within the spaces, we have traditional ventilation systems that provide ventilation to the spaces. So when it's cold out and the windows are closed, we're relying on heating and bringing in fresh air through systems that exist in all of the spaces. However, in the springtime or times where the temperature is perfect outside, just what you want in a space, 70 degrees or so, give or take a couple of degrees, there's a little light in the room, a little panel that has a red light and a green light. So the red light stays on. That means, you keep the windows closed. You can open them. You're not going to get in trouble or anything. But, generally to operate the system super efficiently, you keep the windows closed. It's relying on the system to heat and to bring ventilation in. So that's all operating correctly. When the temperatures are optimal, that little green light will go on. That tells the occupants that it's okay to open up the windows. Go ahead, open up the windows and let that fresh air in. You push a little button on that panel and it opens up a chase that goes up through the ceiling, up through the roof. Windows are open, and the wind and the air just draws right through the space and provides this passive cooling. So fresh air, all of the systems then ramp down. We're saving a lot of energy that way, and the kids get to see how the building breathes on its own. And that was one of the approaches that we took early in the design. Stephen, brought up a lot of these points as we were going. I kept saying, we want to make this building a teaching tool as well. We want to have these sustainability components visible. You see the tree columns that adorn the site and within the building, those are trees harvested from the site prior to the rebuild. The operation of the building, you can actually see the building breathing as you open up these doors and feel the nice air come in. There's a lot of really cool features like that. The exposed mass of the building. So those are just a couple of the things that we see in the classrooms that aid in that cooling process, and that is visible and functional. They get to play with it.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Mary has put a question in the chat, and is, will the rebuilt schools LOJH and River Grove also meet the Energy Trust of Oregon Path to Net Zero standard? Is that the plan?
That is certainly our goal, though I haven't stated exactly Path to net zero, I've tried to stay away from that because things do change quite a bit. Lead levels, things like that. Path to net zero is a term, but highly sustainable and a very similar approach to our other schools. So we may see some slightly different mechanical systems, approach to mechanical systems in various areas of the building, depending on what we land on, but we are looking at several different approaches. We have a dedicated outside air system for our Lakeridge Middle School, which it does seem to be functioning quite well and is very, very efficient. Also some heat recovery systems that reuse the energy to maintain that temperature that we're trying to achieve. So also reducing the use of energy in our buildings. I believe that we will be continuing with the goal of creating all electric buildings. Electricity and the systems that we have in the building here are incredibly efficient. And we do have a strong partnership with PGE, and they continue to work on their sustainability measures as related to energy. And we're really excited to continue to partner with them.
Excellent, excellent. I'm going to move on to science labs. A significant portion of the 2021 school bond will fund updated science labs and STEM spaces at the high schools, as well as I think other schools. Well, you can answer that. And so what are some of those proposed updates? And once you tell us about the buildings, then perhaps Larry can fill in how the new labs will support the sustainability curriculum that is envisioned for those schools.
Sure. If you go into our high schools and go to the science labs, they probably look pretty much the same than when you were in those high schools. So maybe some slight updates, but they are quite dated. Some of the equipment is not operating the way that we would like it to. Some of the demonstration hoods or demonstration spaces are not operating the way that they should, or to the extent that we would like them to with evolving programs. So as we get into a design process, we'll be focusing on our science labs at both of the high schools as a big component of our upgrades going into the next program. Part of that design process will include Larry and myself, most likely, going and visiting with our staff to various buildings in Oregon, some of the newer facilities that have been built. We want to create cutting edge labs that can do a whole array of demonstration and programs around the sciences. We're really excited about some things we've seen in some recent remodels, modernizations of schools like Franklin High School in Portland, Roosevelt are some great examples of things that we're very excited at looking at as opportunities. But this process involves many staff members. We have an idea of kind of the direction, the overall cost that's been applied to our proposed program coming up. And as we get into it, we'll be getting a lot of feedback as to how our programs are evolving and what we'd like to see in those lab spaces.
Do you want to comment on that, Larry? About what?
Yeah, and as the spaces evolve, new programs will, oh, well, I can do this with it. And maybe a teacher wants to take and run a biomedical route, or maybe we bring in connections, and it just allows us a chance for the kids to do high level science, to do high level thinking and working with, to fully get them prepared to go to the next level, whatever direction they go to. But it really will set us up to be, and just for them to be able to excel, and for our teachers to be able to teach the way that they really think that they can to get the most out of their students.
Okay, thank you. I want to move to gardens. Oh wait, Jessica has a question. Are there plans to support outdoor education, having class outside, and food agriculture ed? And that kind of dovetails with the question I'm about to ask. Gardens really are the most visible component of the sustainability curriculum at this point. And to all of you watching, if you have not had a chance to visit Hallinan Elementary, please do not go during school hours. But if you get over there on the weekend and check out their garden and outdoor space, it is phenomenal. So the gardens have been incorporated somewhat erratically, depending on in the past, depending on parent interest and volunteer availability and things like that. Last night, so Larry and Tony and I were on a call with the Forest Hills Parent Club, And we were talking about, Tony was talking about adjacencies at Hallinan. The garden is near the outdoor classroom, which is near the innovation lab. So can you talk about that, those adjacencies, and what you hope to learn at Hallinan and how that might be replicated at other schools?
You want me to go, Larry, or is that you?
You go. You can take that and I'll fill in.
Yeah, so Hallinan had an outdoor classroom already. It was a small kind of covered open-sided structure adjacent to the building. We had to remove it to build our new building. And to be honest, there were some issues with the existing structure that was there, so really wasn't adequate anymore. So during the design of Hallinan, we started thinking a little bit further about our innovation labs and how we wanted our innovation labs to really interact with the buildings. And I kept thinking about this overlap with sustainability. Well, how does that play into sustainability? Well, nature and science and technology and developing all of these cool tools, it seemed like a natural fit to me. Totally different, but kind of natural at the same time. And then I started talking to Larry, and Larry's blasting off all these cool ideas. So we took an approach at Hallinan to replace the garden that existed and enhance it. And we also created a little courtyard at Hallinan that is adjacent directly to our addition for the makerspace, with roll-up doors that open up into that garden area, a big patio that they could do little outdoor experiments and tinkering with STEM education and all sorts of really cool things, plus that outdoor classroom that exists. It's kind of new for our schools. And we're really excited to see how Principal Melissa interacts with that outdoor classroom this year. And that's something that we're paying very much attention to see how they use that space all year round and how they interact both with the innovation lab and the gardens. And as we learn more and see how that space is functioning and all the adjacencies, we'll start to do some upgrades at our other schools as well.
Yeah. And we're looking at with that space, it's not an extra thing for teachers to do. How can we integrate it within what they're learning? Fifth grade is looking at the colonists. Well, one of the farm plots could be a colonial plot similar to what was grown there. What types of challenges? How is that? How is it challenge growing that type of a crop in this type of an environment? Looking at opportunities. Each of the levels has a plant section within their science units. Well, how do we get the kids out in there and get them looking at the structures and doing real science, getting their hands dirty, taking a look at these things and building that learning so that it extends beyond just the classroom? Because then once they start tinkering around here, they'll start wanting, I want to grow something at home. Why does it work here? And then start making those connections and really expanding and growing as they move forward. So it's one that we're the curriculum, we're working on it and looking at how it can be tied in with what we're doing, how it still meets standards, but how we can do it in a variety of ways to really enrich the learning experience for all of our students.
Thank you. Mary would like to know, Tony, will there be more opportunities for public tours of Lakeridge Middle?
Sure.
Okay.
You just got to ask. I'm happy to take people on tours. And so generally what I've been doing, offering tours on Wednesdays. I have some time in the afternoons typically, and that's generally worked out. We also have early release, so there's an opportunity there. Without students in, I can take people through the building. And if people are interested in tours, all they have to do is reach out to me and I can set something up. Actually, any of our staff here, they'll easily be able to direct you to me or however you'd like to do it.
Okay. This may be a question for Larry. This one that's coming from Kathleen. Are there plans to start the high school program? High school school to farm program at Lusher Farm again? It was such an incredible program.
That is a really good question. One of the pieces that we're in full design for right now is agricultural spaces on both high school campus. So having a greenhouse, a full 80 by 30 foot fully functional greenhouse with power and water and everything, having raised beds and having in-ground soil study areas where the students can be doing that as part of their environmental science class, as far as AP Bio, as far as trying to connect it with some of the programs that had been done with, like what Andrew Duden had done with LO High School, and tying those in, but being able to do it here now just on our own campus. And that'll be exciting. Along with that, having these amazing outdoor classrooms there as well. So that ties in, you know, and those spaces being not just used by the science classrooms, the foods classes, the culinary arts rooms, you know, their spaces are getting redesigned and modernized. Well, they're going to be tied in and partnering, following a model of like what Sherwood High School does. Their ag study class, they actually grow the herbs and different products that is used, and then the kids then prepare it, and then they sell it, and then from there they've taken it to their cafeterias, and there's this whole big network. But they've also been doing it for 15 years, and so they have a really good system. And so we've talked with them on this. We viewed their structure to get some ideas on it. But there definitely will be an access for getting more kids involved with it. And that's the accessibility is huge.
One of the things I did see also on the bond list is updating the kitchen. So that's more of an academic culinary side, but for the food services, what, and I know you have to leave in a couple minutes, Tony, but can you talk a little bit about the kitchens and maybe what, I know that there's been some parental push about, maybe somehow incorporating the gardens into the cafeterias or the kitchens that then the kids would eat actually at school. Is that kind of in the plans, or?
I wouldn't say that's necessarily in the plans now. That'll be based on, how we can interact with our food service program and our educational culinary arts spaces, especially at the high schools. We are actually designing our high school culinary arts programs right now. We're almost done with the design, actually. And that program will be funded by the remaining 2017 bond program. So we're excited about that. Great opportunities for better hands-on learning in the culinary labs, as well as teacher demonstration. Each student will be able to see the teacher interacting and how they're actually preparing dishes. And there are opportunities, but there are some challenges. We have to make sure that we're dotting the T's and crossing the I's, I guess, is one way of looking at it. But for when in preparation in use of foods that are grown on our properties. There's also some really great opportunities that Larry mentioned, at Lake Oswego High School. We have great connection to outdoor spaces. There's a nice wooded area in the back. And, as I've walked through that space, there's nice little trails with a lot of native plant opportunities. There's some great programs here in Lake Oswego, and very, very motivated folks that want to see native plants and invasive removal, and that connection that we have to try on, right at that campus is really unique and just really a lot of great opportunities. The greenhouses will be massive, big spaces for year-round growing and year-round demonstration with outdoor classrooms, planter beds, fully accessible site, and all sorts of amenities, both for our students as well as community members that want to interact. And that's another thing that we're working on at the elementary level. Traditionally our gardens have come to be by volunteers. Our parents have worked on them in varying efforts along the way. We want to make sure that our staff is supporting that as well, and that our maintenance teams are also supporting that effort, making sure that things are operating correctly, that they're being taken care of in times where we're not in session.
Okay.
So there's just really a lot of great opportunities.
Yeah, actually, I'm just gonna throw a comment, and I wanted to take a shout or give a shout out to Brent Paul, because his team of building engineers and custodians are really critical to making all of this successful. And I know, having worked, and I know Liz Welsh and I have both worked on the Green School program, and with their use of non-toxic cleaning supplies and integrated pest management, and they have been critical to recycling and composting efforts at the schools. So I know that it takes a huge village to make these schools sustainable. And I want to just, in front of you, give Brent a shout out, because he has been an amazing partner and been very helpful and willing to talk to parents, to talk to us about what he's been doing in the schools to help us out.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to actually, you mentioned natives, and I know that natives are a significant part of the landscaping plan. And I know Larry and I have talked about incorporating native plants into the curriculum. Can you talk about, plans for the new schools, like LOG, or what you've done at Lakeridge in terms of, we've talked a lot about the building, but the grounds themselves are also crucial to some of this curriculum. Can you talk about some of the plants?
Yeah. So we were pretty careful in the selection of our plants.
Mhm.
We obviously, when you come to the site, you'll see some very mature white oaks. We worked really hard to save a couple of these trees that are around our site. And, our contractor was not very happy about having to build a building right next to a mature white oak, but we were able to do it. We had arborists on board through the process, keeping an eye on our trees, making sure that they're staying safe. And then when it came to selection of plants, we worked pretty hard with our team. There are some implications that you have to follow code for plant coverage and all of those things, water quality planting. So one of the things we wanted to look at, we wanted to be able to tell a story about how we get water off of our site. Where does it go? Does it just go into the dirt? Does it flow onto the street? Does it go into a river? Well, it does. So we wanted to show how the water comes off of the building. And so when you walk around the building here, you can see water quality swales throughout the space, in each of the areas outside of the building and the courtyard, the sides of the building. And then you have these river rock runnels that you can actually see the water coming off of the building when it's raining, going into these stormwater quality areas that really pre-treats the stormwater before it goes down into a detention system, then eventually goes out into our waterways. So it tells another story about how we treat and we respect the water that comes down, not only nourishing our plants, but cleaning it as it comes off of our buildings and into the earth again. So it's another thing that we're pretty passionate about, being able to tell that story. And then plus, all of the different types of trees that we have, we've got all sorts of trees, we've got different types of native plants. So there's lots of ferns. We try to go for relatively low maintenance, so it helps our maintenance team. And everything that we have here is native to the area. So we're very specific about the types of plants we choose as well. In fact, we have some trees outside that, we were thinking about our maintenance crews, and they're going around with their blowers all the time. We wanted the trees to fall at the same time, so we picked a particular type of tree that drops leaves really at kind of the same time in a short duration, so we're not going back and back and back all the time, saving money again and saving time and making that transition into fall.
Before I turn to you, Larry, Kathleen has one more question for you, Tony. Has the school district looked at moving away from gas powered landscaping equipment and transitioning to electric and hand tools?
We have a pretty significant investment. We are making some changes with battery powered tools. Some of the technology now is evolving where we can actually get efficient with commercial type equipment in that kind of scenario. And we're looking at, in the future, looking at fleet vehicles that will be powered differently. I'm still waiting for my new Tesla, but the district hasn't ponied up for that yet, unfortunately.
We'll get Duke on that.
Yeah. But, we are looking at that, and we are looking at, buses that would be electric, much more efficient transportation for our students. And as we evolve in our new schools, we'll be looking at more efficient equipment. So, battery powered, the gators that we see them driving around on to pick up garbage around their sites, looking at battery powered versions of those and other equipment within our buildings and outside.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Larry, did you want to say anything else about the native plants, or
just the areas that that we have, tying them into, like the example at Oak Creek, one of the native gardens that was planted back in 2010, looking at how different plants that Lewis and Clark experienced along the trail as they came through. Well, what a great way as you're reading the journals and you're studying, you're going down the trail. Oh, well, let's go take a look at what they were referencing and let's see how this is and how did it work for this environment and things. So really trying to use the landscape and the things around as a teaching tool, as a way to make another connection for the students.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, let's see. Does anyone have any questions or want to add anything before Tony has to jump off the call? Anybody? Okay. Oh, no, Liz has one, sorry. Did you consider battery storage to go with the solar panels?
We have, in fact, we have real estate in our mechanical spaces for future battery. We haven't made that leap entirely yet, but it is something that we are considering as we start to deploy our solar panels up on our roofs. And we'll take a similar approach to make sure that we're accommodating potential future additions.
Looks like Duke is asking a question. Are you asking a question, Duke?
Yeah, I was. Let me just unmute to make it quicker.
Okay.
So, Tony, when are we going to install the EV charging at the middle school?
Still working on that. Still working on that. The approach is something that I'm considering now, and I'm certainly putting in infrastructure and designs that are starting for other facilities. I have had recent conversations with PGE about some upcoming programs that we'll probably make an attempt for. So I'm excited about that. So more to come on EV charging stations.
Okay.
Chime in?
Go ahead now, do it.
Can I chime in? Just wanted to know if the grade schools also will be having solar panels.
Yes, they will. So our new facilities will all have, at the very least, depending on cost of construction, our spaces will be the most important part of the projects to complete. But as we go, they'll, at the very least, similar to Lakeridge Middle School, have infrastructure for future solar. Our goal would be to deploy solar at first pass, depending on where we shake out with our overall budget as we approach construction. There are opportunities at some of our existing schools, and as we've renovated our schools, we've made sure that structurally we can hold various types of arrays on our roofs. So our roofs are structurally ready to receive panels. And they've become much lighter over the years, and the technology continues to get better and better. So that's the thing that we're really excited about. The real estate that they take is quite a bit, and when we can get these systems even smaller, we can get even more out of them. So we are excited about that.
Yeah, you got a lot of real estate on top of the high school. Certainly the high school. The high schools have a lot of roof space. Mary asks, can the schools become part of a community solar garden? I assume that means like a community solar system.
Yeah, so there are opportunities for community funded solar. If the district can afford the solar panels, we would probably apply them to our own facilities with battery backup if possible, as a community resource as well, further reducing our operating costs. Community-based solar is interesting. I've learned quite a bit about it, thanks to Duke hooking up me with some of his colleagues that have vast knowledge around the systems and how to get them deployed. They're very interesting, and there's various levels of payoff that you would apply. One of the things that I was hoping for is being able to show where that energy goes. So if we had a community-based solar program, I'd like it to go to Lake Oswego community residents at the rate. So there's a lot of things that would be considered. It's a possibility in the future.
Dorothy asks, changing elements here, what about water reuse and gray water? Is that something that's a possibility?
It is a possibility. I've had issues with those types of systems in the past. I know that technology has changed. We have had success here with rainwater reclamation for irrigation purposes, and that is something that I think is a pretty easy step. We have installed a small cistern over at Hallinan, which is another component of the teaching tool. So it's a pretty cool system. Kids can interact with it with a little stainless steel pump. When we go with gray water, or we use a gray water flush system for our toilets, we're running a whole nother set of pipes through our building. And some of those systems we have had challenges with water collection and using that water for flushing of toilets, as an example. So it is something that we would consider, but there is a fairly significant cost associated with the first cost install.
Mm-hmm. So all these systems that you're talking about, the solar and even the I love the pump. I think I've seen that pump at Hallinan. How are you? Maybe a whole nother conversation, but are you working? And maybe Larry can address this. Are you working on what are the lessons for the kids? Like how are we going to use these both as a passive and an active tool to teach the kids about? You talked about the buildings being teaching tools. How is that going to be implemented?
Well, as part of looking at energy use and energy transfer and within systems, there are places within the curriculum that we're looking at making these direct connections to. Studying the middle school, Lakeridge Middle School, both the 6th grade and the 8th grade have key standards on human impacts based on energy use. And it seems like this is a perfect example of how we can make those connections to tie in. The architectural design class at both middle schools is another piece to actually get in. And we're not just drawing willy-nilly on computers running through CAD. Let's actually get in and let's look at how these systems work. Let's actually learn from experts and have people that have worked on these buildings to come in and talk to us and to take a look at how these systems are all functioning together. So really looking at those natural connections to try and tie it in so that the students can make those connections and can learn from it.
Okay. A question just popped up on the chat, so it's probably for Tony and actually maybe for Jan. Is Lakeridge Junior a community emergency gathering place / shelter in case of an earthquake or a large storm with long-term outages?
Yes.
Okay.
It has all of the design elements built in to act as an emergency shelter after a major seismic event and other disasters likely. We have a generator in the back that's part of that resiliency strategy with redundancy of systems that does allow us to have a 3-day runtime. There is a place to plug in water if we have severed water mains throughout the city. A water truck that is fortunate enough to get to our site can plug in and bring water back into our systems. The kitchen will remain almost fully active. Our freezers, refrigerators, cooking equipment. We have a mixer in our kitchen that could make 3,257 pancakes in one mix if you wanted to. So it's pretty exciting. We can feed an army if we needed to. So there are a lot of things that we've done to this site to make sure that it's available, that it can be available. And the district continues to work on strategies across the district at all of our facilities. So we have done some pretty significant upgrades elsewhere. Lakeridge Middle School has by far been taken the furthest with the most consideration about how it would be utilized. And we would expect that if we had major challenges like, even with the fires that we were having, we have an agreement with educational districts that if there's an emergency and communities need to evacuate, we open our doors to them. And our spaces can be used as emergency shelters. And, I continue to work with, the Sustainability Network and others about resiliency and how we can better use those systems. our fire department, our first responders. They're engaged in how we can do this, and our neighborhoods are also very active in providing information and requesting, what can they do to help, in an event such as this. So we want to be prepared.
Okay, Phil just popped a question in. Any innovations in lighting to adjust for different needs during the time of day and outside light?
Oh yeah. So at the new Lakeridge Middle School, as an example, every light in here, and I'm in the building right now.
Oh yeah, I see that you are.
Yeah, somebody just walked over there. Otherwise they would be off because everything's on occupancy sensor. So as you walk through the building after it's been in unoccupied mode for a while, lights will just turn on and then they'll turn off after a period of time. It's like that in every space in the building, with the exception of our required egress lighting. If you're in a classroom during the day, you have the windows open and it's nice and bright outside. We have a lot of day lighting. So oftentimes they don't even need to have the lights on. In the classrooms, it's very subtle, but you can see that the ceiling, even on the first floor, is slightly sloped to the exterior of the building, which provides even more opportunities for daylighting to come into the spaces. We have 3 rows of lights in a very kind of traditional manner in our classrooms. The lights that are closest to the windows will automatically dim. The second row will dim a little bit less, and then the third row will be fully on depending on the day. But they dim automatically, and they actually do reduce the energy consumption and provide that level amount of light to the spaces. We're doing similar upgrades at a lot of our facilities. We have completed over the past few summers and renovations, and we continue to deploy those highly efficient lamps that we're putting out in our schools. So the LEDs, people ask me, how long will they last? We don't know. The first ones are still burning. And they'll last a really, really long time. So when we get these lights, some of the technology is newer, but they've proven to be very durable and very long lasting and very low on energy consumption.
And are the students made aware of this? I mean, do they know that, the lights are different in their classrooms for different reasons, depending on where they are in the classroom? Yeah.
So as teachers have come back and students are back in the spaces, they start noticing these things. They notice the little light on the wall. And, we work with our architects to put together a little game plan, a user guide, if you will, for our classroom. So they can see, some of the sustainability features in the spaces. They can understand that, here's how we're consuming energy. We actually have a fairly sophisticated building automation system that's hooked up to all of our equipment that can tell us a whole bunch of things. Tell us how much energy we're using, when the systems are on or off, when our max loads are during the day of occupancy, when it's hot or cold. So we can use all of that data and kind of create these dashboards. And we're in the process of trying to come up with ways to display this throughout the building and say, it was cold out yesterday and here's how much energy we spent.
I want to transition a little bit to, based on what you said about, we're focusing on how the students are interacting with the building, but of course, and with the sustainability curriculum, but of course, the teachers have to know about it too. The teachers have to know about the building. The teachers have to understand. So maybe, Larry, can you talk a little bit about, what you're doing to help the teachers kind of get up to speed on some of these, or both of you can talk about that, get up to speed on not only the building of Lakeridge Middle School, but just in terms of how you're preparing the teachers to incorporate sustainability into their curricula.
Right, well, one of the key pieces to understanding, the challenge is, what is sustainability? And one of the big pieces that I'm working on, that I work with the school board on, and that I've worked with staffs, I'm starting to go around, is what is your mental model? What does it mean? And me having a science background, I had this perfect, nice little picture of sustainability through a science lens. And then working with Breck Foster, a high school teacher at LO, she does with her freshman social studies class, they're looking at social equity and environmental justice. And I was like, okay, so my model just changed. And then my daughter, who studied economics, said, well, Dad, what about how we purchase things? What about this component to it? And so, there's this other piece to it. So really getting them to look at, their own lens can change and can grow. And that as they're working with students, it's important that the students can do small things that they can make a difference with, because there is a huge amount of stress with climate change and, oh my gosh, we've got all these things. Well, but hey, you just recycle. Oh, you helped us to do composting things. Oh, hey, you're the green light monitor. You're going to get us all set. Giving them something tangible so that they can be part of the solution. And then working with the students and the teachers and their green teams. And I just met with both high school green teams today, and it's phenomenal. The number of kids that are excited and they've got all these great ideas. Well, how do I help them to bring their ideas to, how can we make those a reality? And you know, they want to know, they want to get baselines. Where are our schools now? And then if we make these changes, how did we improve? You know, they're curious about the boilers that have been replaced. Well, how did that show an improvement? Oh, how much carbon are we not using compared to what we had before? And so getting the kids involved with this and analyzing and having the schools having this dialed into, we're looking at energy and water consumption and the human experience within buildings so that we can build these baselines and do comparisons to really get them tied in. But it starts with that mental model. It starts with what is it and how do you personalize it and how can you do small things?
So when we do this forum a year from now, maybe we can just have the kids come on and tell us.
Yeah, they were all saying, when do we get to speak to the school board? I mean, we're so excited about this. They're ready. I mean, and also it's about building systems and building site-based leadership, because you know, these kids that are so passionate and they've got this huge interest, as they transition on, if there aren't other kids with it, then it goes by the side. But how do we turn it into, this is just how we approach it? It's not a science piece. It's a systems piece. It's how we do things. It's culture. Mm-hmm. And once the culture becomes part of it, there's not a question of, oh, I'm going to take my crust that I didn't eat off my sandwich and put it in the compost bin. You know, that's just what we do, because that's because we believe in it, because we have ownership. And so building it in so that we've got systems in place so that as you know, we move along and other people come in, it's set and it continues and it grows.
As someone who's carried a banana peel around all day because I have to put it in my compost and not the garbage, that really speaks to me. That touches me. I love that. Liz wants to know.
I need to go, Courtney.
Okay. Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here. If you have questions about the building, we do have one of our lead architects on the call.
Okay.
So you might be able to ask him if he's willing to answer those questions. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.
Okay. Talk
Courtney,
soon.
I also put Tony's email in the chat.
Excellent. Yeah, I know that Mary Kay has did have some. Mary Kay Larson is the communications director for the district, and they were having summer tours. So yeah, we'll try to see if we can get more of those. So I did have a question Liz asked, and actually I don't know if Larry could answer this or maybe Stephen could. Do we know what some of the largest energy consumptions are for our district, and what are our ideas to address these?
Well, I'm right now, I am in the process of compiling data back to the 2017-2018 school year, that we figured that was a good place to start, because that was just prior, that's just when the bond passed. Mm-hmm. And so that will give us you know, going forward, there are some issues with our data that we're finding. Our water, our gallons that we've used, like for Lake Oswego High School, it also includes the pool.
Oh, right.
And so we're having to go through and, well, we need to look at interior. A lot of the buildings have a single register or single meter for the irrigation plus, or at least that's how it's billed out, as a single piece. So we're having to go back and do some more adjustments, but those are the questions, you know, what are the things that we've done, you know, have they made, what are the big things that are still out there that we need to go through and change? So I think Liz doing, continuing to build a baseline and to audit our, not just the structure, but audit also our curriculum, audit the teachers that are out there doing things. I mean, there's a lot of amazing things happening, but we just need to find out what's out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Stephen, do you want to chime in and just, maybe for a minute or two, talk about your experience working on these projects for our district?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name's Stephen Endy. I'm with Malum Architects. I've been working on the Lakeridge Middle School project. So the bulk of my experience is on that building. And one of the things that strikes me overall from our experience was the tremendous impact that this group, this Sustainability Network, had in helping the school district envision sustainable goals for this project. When we first sought to work with the team, the instructions were clear in the RFP that there were goals for being net zero energy ready, using mass timber construction, and building resilient features for the community. And so all three of those goals really helped from the very beginning guide us in the design of the project, and having that written into the expectations of the bond really made a big difference. So I just want to put a great sense of gratitude to this group for speaking up, especially Duke and Jan, for sharing that passion and helping us at the start of the project. And generally, I'm really excited. Obviously, all the things Tony shared are quite accurate. He did a great job describing the building and the features and the interaction with the users. One thing I might just add is, we had, during the design project, we didn't apply as much of the budget to PV. We opted instead to use that funding for passive systems. We were able to meet a lot of the requirements of the 2030 challenge, which is related to the Energy Trust of Oregon's Path to Net Zero Energy program, with the passive increased insulation, robust windows, as well as the passive ventilation features. And taking that approach helps put value in the building that'll last for the life of the structure. There's very few moving parts with the increased insulation. Simple systems to open windows and dampers should be very maintainable. And so with that efficiency, then the ability to add PV in the future really gives a path to get it toward net zero. So I was really proud to be able to invest in the passive systems. They not only support that simplicity and maintenance, but also making it habitable during blackouts and comfortable during any condition where it's not fully powered. So
yeah, I've been in the building a couple times. It's extremely comfortable. Jan looks like she wants to say something. Jan?
Yeah, Stephen, do we actually have mass timber in that building?
We do. I think what would fall into that category is the acoustic dowel laminated timber. It's the roof structure for the Commons cafeteria.
Oh.
The low portion and on toward the courtyard, and what it's got basically 2x6s stacked up and tied together. But what's interesting is that the bottom side is cut out with absorptive bats into these slots that absorb the sound. So it serves as the roof structure, also this beautiful wood finish, but also absorbs the sound, the loud noise from the cafeteria. So that's the mass timber. We have heavy timber, which is the glulam beams and the whole tree, the round columns would be heavy timber. And then we did use wood structure throughout, kind of more light framed traditional wood materials, trying to carry that forward for the idea of reduced embodied carbon footprint.
Excellent.
Well, and a comment going along with the wood being used. One of the teachers I was talking with made a note that the wood tones make the students and teachers feel outside while inside. They have that real connection to it. It's the naturalness of the building. She said, just makes me want to be here. So, that's a nice thing that, you want to go in and you want to go experience your building and be there with your students.
And we definitely want the children to want to come to school. That's
a good thing.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Thank you so much, Stephen. You'll stay on in case there are other questions for you, but I have two for Larry. Larry, what is the best way to contact you about some possibilities with Lakeridge High School students and Pecan Creek and new park being developed at the northwest corner of the roundabout? I'm not sure what Pecan Creek is. I guess the core of the question is, how's the best way to contact you? Can they, in your emails?
Yeah,
on the site?
yeah. The best way would be to, so my role, this is a brand new role for the school district. I'm a longtime teacher. I've been teaching in the district since 1990, and taught at elementary and taught at middle level science, and then did STEM for the school district for the past couple of years, and then now moved into this. The best way would just be to send me an email. And I am with, I'm at Palisades, and I work directly with Tony and the bond team as we move forward. But so yeah, all of those, I'm not familiar with that project. There's a lot of things. Oh, thanks, Dorothy. A lot of things that I'm learning. I just had a chance to meet Amanda, the new sustainability director for the city of Lake Oswego, looking at how, we should be teaming up. We should have community things together, and how do we support each other? Because there are components of an action plan that this district should be doing and will be doing. And so, how do we really work together? And working with Clackamas County and just Energy Trust of Oregon. And so lots of different connections, but again, just looking for ways to give kids and teachers a chance to tie in together.
Okay, I've had a couple other questions pop up. One, I've heard there's a lot, this is a direct message to me. I've heard there's a lot of, a large amount of waste included in the school lunch program, especially now with COVID. Is the food services involved with the sustainability plan with the district? What's that connection?
Yes, yeah. Cristobal Castro, our new director of food services, is great. We just met with him today, meeting with Clackamas County and with Hunger Fighters, and looking at how we're building that relationship together. There are certain protocols that, the way foods, especially, like elementary lunches, are coming all in these paper bags. And I was at Oak Creek, we were working on mental models, and they were saying, well, we could do little things to help. And so the first graders set up, well, let's put a recycle bin next to this, and they set up their own system. And so they started their own recycling piece. Their garbage is no longer overflowing. They're getting bags to get. So it's just like little things with it. There are like single-use plastics and those types of things are a problem. Looking at ways, can we buy things that could be compostable? Could we, run that route? So those are things that Chris Castro is definitely looking at, but it's it's challenging with the rules that we have to abide by, especially for food services.
Okay. I see RJ you have your hand up. Do you want to unmute and ask a question?
Yeah, just a real quick follow up on my question about how to connect with Larry. There's the Rasique Park is right at the northwest corner of the roundabout there at Stafford and Rosemont, and Pecan Creek runs on the west side of the park between the church and Atherton Drive. And we have an active beaver habitat that has just been kind of coming on in the last 2 years. So I've worked actually with Stephanie Wagner's group, the Oswego Lake, and actually the Beaver Coalition, who wants to end up being the Audubon Society for beavers throughout the state, have done some work too. So it's some really good stuff going out there. So I'll just hook up with you when I get a chance, but it's close.
And I'd love to get our environmental science classes out there, have that would be such a perfect connection.
Yes.
Larry, let me just interject that we're actually working at that. This is Stephanie with Watershed Council. So Rick, we're definitely coordinating on that, and I've already started talking to green teams and stuff about
Great.
potential projects, and are looking for some funding for projects too out there.
Perfect.
So
Thanks, Stephanie.
we will definitely coordinate with Larry.
Great.
Yeah. That I think that's part of my position. I found so many amazing people, and everybody is. I learned one thing here. Oh, we're connected with this person, and it's this network of amazing individuals that collectively, there's so many good things going on right now. It's really exciting as this is building.
Mhm. I had a question earlier that I neglected to ask, and I'm not sure, this might actually be for Stephen. What kind of security measures are implemented to limit access to the buildings? I having tried to get into them, to drop things off for the bond campaign. There are security vestibules, and you can't just walk in. The doors are locked. The secretary has to buzz you in. Can you speak to that a little bit, Stephen? Some of the other security measures?
I can describe Lakeridge, and I understand the last 2017 bond included a number of vestibule upgrades at other sites, and I think they're all fairly similar, designed around the same guidelines.
Yeah.
So as you described, there are 2 sets of doors at the main entrance where at arrival time, Principal Schultz can visit students as they come in with the doors open, having that face-to-face connection. But once the arrival time is over, the inner vestibule doors can be closed and locked, at which point you can, from the outside, you can enter through the outer doors. There's a sign-in system and a window with the transaction window for reception where you can be sign in with a visitor's badge and then let in as appropriate. And so there's at Lakeridge Middle School, the district had the advantage of wiring card readers all throughout the building. So, most of those other areas, all the main entrances have a vestibule. So there's the primary school entrance near the admin reception area. There's a similar vestibule near the gym, which can be separated off with overhead coiling doors where the community could use the gym spaces, including the adjacent bathroom facility, or potentially could use the auditorium common space or library.
In fact, we just did that for the cross-country meet on Tuesday. It was great. We set up the teams set up under the covered area, and then we had access to the restrooms, but then just pull down the barrier, and it was kept the rest of the building secure, but allowed the different athletes to be able to get in and use the restrooms and have access to what they needed to. So yeah, it was a great system.
One thing, if Tony were here, he could speak to it. We did use intrusion resistant glazing around the perimeter of the building. And there's also a secured courtyard, which has tall fencing to, the building's designed with a loop, we call it, where the students can circulate in all different directions to get from class to class without feeling trapped in one part of the building. They can choose their path, but it's all within a secure area. They can cut diagonally across that inner courtyard to appreciate the outdoor space while still being within that secure zone.
And I can say I was actually on the design team for Lakeridge Middle, and I was a little concerned that that courtyard would feel a little, confining. And having been in that space, it really doesn't. There are berms and I think an amphitheater, so the kids can do musical performances or theatrical performances, and they can get out and about, and it does not feel at all confined. It was just beautifully designed and a really comfortable space, and so they can be outdoors but be perfectly safe. And I think that was a wonderful addition to the. I say I was in the design team. I did not design that. I was concerned that was going to be a problem, but it's wonderful.
Great, thanks. It's certainly been exciting to see the students using it, with more occupancy levels and being able to spill out from classrooms into that area for breakouts. And it's been nice to see.
Well, and also another safety piece, team, with the cameras that were around just for extra access, exterior and interior.
Mm-hmm. Yes, those I think they're calling for more of those, I think, in the next bond cycle as well. That's part of the security as well. And I think also upgrading communications is another key factor. And I had another question, and then maybe we can do a final thought or something. And Stephen, I don't know if you know this, does the ventilation system address issues that came out of the COVID pandemic?
Yes, I want to say yes. You know, when we designed the building, it was before the pandemic, but there's certain advantages to the way we came up. So the ventilation system is 100% dedicated outside air, or DOAS ventilation. So it's all coming in fresh from the outside. There's a heat exchanger, as Tony described, where you capture the energy going out, but the actual air particles don't mix. They just pass through separate channels. And so what I've noticed, one great feature is the number, in addition to that mechanical ventilation, that's providing all the code required ventilation, the ability to open the windows and potentially also the roof dampers allows for a lot of just cross ventilation. We had to design in enough operable windows to create enough air intake to balance out the flow of ventilation up through the roof. And so, the typical classrooms have 5 large operable windows, and the larger kind of team shared learning studios have 7 operable windows. So I've seen just last week, most of those windows are open currently, so that there's great natural ventilation in the classrooms, in the commons. The systems have the ability to run a little bit more, without some of the, I guess, let's see. So the systems are designed to optimize and reduce the amount of ventilation, but you can choose to run them more frequently. It might take a little more energy to ventilate at a higher rate, but you can run them higher. So all the filters are, I believe, MERV 13 is our standard baseline, which is a pretty high standard currently. So the systems at Lakeridge are in great shape for that. We didn't design in any specific HEPA filters, but I know they are using portable HEPA filters as needed. So I'd say generally that it's a good system for that effect. But at the time we weren't planning on it, so it's hard to claim that was our intent.
I started this process in 2016. I started on the long range, and we had a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 5 years we didn't anticipate 5 years ago, but it's a good thing our buildings can handle it. Yeah, Jan, did you want to say something?
Yes, a very handy after the fact addition that Tony stuck in there was ultraviolet lights in the ventilation system. So, and that will, no, I'm sorry, not ultraviolet. This is the ionic cleansing system for the air. So that will kill viruses. So the building could be used even under smoky circumstances when you couldn't open the windows. You can keep the fans going with the air handlers, and the air then would be circulating with the ionic filters in there and killing the viruses. So even if we had a horrible smoke event during a pandemic, you could have relative safety.
You did,
So,
I mean,
gotta say, the guy's always thinking.
yeah, absolutely. Stephen, thank you so much for pinch hitting there and very generous with your time.
Happy to help. This has been great. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Larry, do you want to have any final thoughts about things you want to make sure that we don't leave here without knowing this from you?
I'm having taught in the district for my entire career at different buildings at different levels. It seems like we really have the support from central office, Jen Sheely, our superintendent. We have people in place, and we will be able to build systems where I think sustainability is really going to be an important piece of who we are. It's not just something that will happen in little pieces. I think it will be something that we'll have for our entire district, for all of our students K-12, and we'll be able to reach our goal of having global citizens that are aware of what's going on and that feel like they can make a difference and have the power to actually do something about it. So I'm so excited about where we're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. And I will be sure to send Tony another thank you email, and Stephen, again, thank you for jumping in. And as I wrap up, I just want to let everybody know, a lot of the things that we've talked about with Lakeridge Middle, we are hoping to replicate at Lake Oswego Junior High and River Grove Elementary, as well as, updating the rest of the buildings in the district. And that only happens if we pass the bond, which is on your ballot, which you should be receiving. Some of you received it, some of you will receive it going forward. And as a network, we have been pretty integral in, a lot of us served on different committees and have really been advocating for the district to adopt these sustainability features, not only in their buildings, but also in curriculum. And so we've driven a lot of, as Stephen said, of what has happened. And I'd like to see that continue. Now, Larry cannot ask you to vote for the bond. He can just tell you, as a district employee, he cannot, but I can. So I would ask you to please vote yes on the bond when you get your ballot. And there's only 3 things on the ballot. And so it shouldn't take you very long to fill it out. And if you would support all of our efforts going forward on these sustainable buildings, it will help our community, it'll help our students, it'll help our faculty, it'll just help all of our citizens. And I think that's what I have. So I think Dorothy is gonna jump in and do announcements. Mary?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. I'm Dorothy Atwood. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the board members of the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. And just a couple quick things of what's coming up. We've got not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the Tree Summit, which we're co-hosting with the Oswego Lake Watershed Council. That's Saturday from 10 to noon. And if I hit return, maybe, oh no, well, if I hit return somewhere, you will see in the chat, there's a registration link that you can register directly right now. And then our next month's forum is just right in step with what we've just heard about. We heard Tony talk about the path to net zero. Well, next month's forum, we're going to hear about beyond net zero buildings and thinking about restorative buildings. And that is going to be not our regular Thursday, but Wednesday, November 17th at our usual time, 6:30 to 8. And the registration link again is, I just put that into the chat. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and then again, reiterate what Courtney said. Please vote. That's something that you can do. The Lake Oswego Sustainability Network Board has looked at the measures there, and we have supported the school bond as a network, and also the city's charter amendment, which is measure 3-575. And we'll be sending out more information about that. And so looking forward to seeing all of you at our next events. And with that, we'll say good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks all.